At first, my life seemed like a fairy tale. After graduating from university, I gained experience in design and programming and managed to free myself from all obligations to the river service. My father insisted that I go into the army as an officer, while my mother, with worry in her eyes, pleaded, "Vedic, do whatever it takes to avoid the service." But I chose a middle ground and went into alternative civilian service, where I was assigned as an orderly. Soon, I was taught how to give injections and dress wounds and was sent to a small village attached to the local paramedic station. It was a long, one-story building with an examination room, a physiotherapy office, a procedure room, and a relaxation room decorated with wallpaper. In early autumn, I was met by the local district police officer, the only low representative in the 3 nearest settlements. He was laconic, wished me luck, and showed me the house where I would temporarily settle. In this house, which used to be a library, I was allocated a room, which was considered a good privilege. Then we went to the medical center, where I was handed over to the paramedics. They explained that I needed to come every day at 8 in the morning, check in, mop the floors in the corridor and the procedure room. At first, it really felt like a fairy tale. I didn't think about making money and simply enjoyed the freedom, took long walks, wandered along deserted streets and fields in proud solitude. However, by early winter, I decided to try taking orders online, but, alas, it didn't work out. I couldn't write code. Logos didn't come together, and the feeling of uncompleted work weighed on me more and more. At some point, I just gave up, dropped everything, and started looking for an opportunity to help the local residents, offering my strength and services in the hope that physical labor would help relax my mind and inspire creativity. However, physical labor did not bring the relief I hoped for. Most of the time I spent helping out on other people's homesteads for a small fee. One day, in early 2022, Ivan, one of the main local bureaucrats, stopped by our medical center. The day before, I had thrown out my back moving heavy, rusty tools from one shed to another, and apparently looked accordingly tired. We chatted over a cup of tea, and the conversation quickly turned to money and difficulties with earning a living. I complained that working in my field without mood and inspiration was almost impossible, and that my conscience didn't allow me to work mechanically. Ivan nodded understandingly, smiled, and offered what seemed like a dream to me. "Dream job," he said. "Sitting around, reading books, drinking coffee, walk the grounds once an hour, and that's it." I was assigned to find a security guard for a gas distribution station. At first, I couldn't believe my ears. A guard at some abandoned station. Ivan explained that during the day, another employee was on duty at the station, but at night a guard was needed to monitor the area. Anton, the previous guard, could no longer fulfill his duties, and Ivan urgently needed a replacement. "The pay is $2,500 per shift," he added. I couldn't believe my luck. Steady earnings for such work. We agreed to meet at 6 in the evening to go to the station together. All morning, I was in mixed feelings, the euphoria mixed with anxiety. But by lunchtime, I went to the store for groceries. In the store, I met Elena, who was sitting behind the counter, leisurely shelling seeds with the shopkeeper. When she saw me, she asked me anxiously, "Is it true that you got a job as a security guard?" I nodded, answering cautiously, but then the shopkeeper intervened. "Did he tell you about the missing people?" she asked, and a chill ran down my spine. I glanced at Elena, but she didn't seem thrilled about the topic either. "You know what?" she added. "Go with Ivan today, see how things work there, but don't rush into a decision. We have our own stories here." I felt that unpleasant pressure in my chest again. Elena promised that tomorrow she would take me to Anton, the previous guard, so I could learn more. Trying to calm my nerves, I sat by the counter, and Elena began telling the story of an old resident whom the locals considered a witch. She lived near the medical station in a small house, now covered in snow. They said that in her youth, this woman knew how to heal people, and many came to her for help. The rumors about her healing grew more frightening, and with each word Elena spoke, my worry deepened. She told me that one day, a local blacksmith with a severe cough came to the witch. She accepted potatoes and a bottle of spirits as a gift, then completely cured him of his illness. From that day on, the blacksmith never got sick and seemed to have nearly supernatural health. So word of the healer spread around. Gradually, people from other villages started coming to her, some with joint pain, others with vision problems, and some even to heal emotional wounds. With the arrival of winter, things grew even more mysterious. In the 90s, a visiting businessman came to her with his sick wife. Official medicine had been powerless, but the witch agreed to treat her. Hours passed, and soon the woman started screaming in pain. In a rage, her husband rushed toward the house, but he didn't make it inside. He collapsed in the yard, struck down as if by some force, hitting his head. Since then, none of the locals dared to seek help from the witch again, and her house, they say, became forever shrouded in mystery and fear. When I returned home after hearing this story, I felt a heavy weight on my heart. At the appointed time, I met with Ivan, and together we went to the gas distribution station. Along the way, he told me about the village, about this silent place, which in winter seemed almost abandoned. The faint lights from the houses and the frozen paths created a strange feeling of silence and detachment around. We arrived at the station, and Ivan proudly said that the job was calm and didn't require much effort. Sit here quietly, walk around the premises once in an hour, Ivan said with a slight smile. He concluded by adding that I should not take things too personally, as this village is full of old tales and fictions. The first shifts went by peacefully, and I began to get used to the place. It seemed that there was an extraordinary calm around, and over time my fear lessened. Long nights turned into cold, foggy days, when the gray sky seemed to merge with a sea of white snow. Sometimes, it seemed to me that the shadows outside the windows became more real, but I tried to ignore it. One morning, I woke up with a feeling that something had changed in the village. It seemed as if the air had grown denser, and the silence more oppressive. Thus, January passed, and with the arrival of February, the atmosphere around seemed to thicken. One evening Elena came to visit her friend, a store owner, and they shared that in February, people try not to get sick. She hinted that over the past 20 years, February had become a month of disappearances. With February's arrival, the village seemed to sink into an anxious waiting, and each evening was filled with an inexplicable sense of fear. Every time I went on my rounds, it felt like someone was watching me from the darkness. A few days passed, and the strange feeling intensified. Everything around seemed ominous, as if the village itself breathed fear. Elena shared that many residents had gotten used to these fears, and simply tried to ignore the disappearances. One evening, as I sat in the guardhouse, I felt an odd chill and heard rustling outside the window. Every night, it felt as if something hidden was watching me, something better left unthought of. Eventually, I realized that fear had become a part of my life, and I could no longer imagine myself without it. The last nights of February were especially tough, and I began counting the days until the end of the month. But even when March 1st came, I couldn't shake the feeling that the village hadn't let me go yet. As I left, I looked back at this place and felt that this story would never truly end. I never returned here, but every February brought back memories of those nights. Deep down, I knew that even years later, this ominous shadow would stay with me. Many years passed, and only in February did I feel the invisible hands of the village reaching out to me again. Perhaps this story truly would never end, but I accepted it as part of my life. With each winter, I remember those nights, and maybe one day I'll decide to return.